Yo, 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 and welcome back to the Banter Boys podcast. My name is Sanji, with me is Elliot. How you doing, boy?
I'm very well, thank you. Yeah, all good. Excited to get back to the game week after a dry FA Cup weekend. How are you?
Eventful FA Cup weekend.
That's
with
very
all
true.
The injuries, suspensions, just added drama for us managers to navigate, you know?
Yeah.
I'm good though. Busy day, long day, but yeah, just you know, happy and ready to chat some fan tracks.
Happy days. Yeah, I think it was one of those where it was more stressful than I think people wanted it to be for an FA Cup weekend. Especially, you know, some of the big hitters, Anthony Gordon, Cunha. I'm sure we'll get onto it, but yeah, I think people would like it to be more of an exciting, let's look at this player who we haven't seen much of, who could be exciting. Instead, it's, oh, bollocks, I need to try and find someone who's going to come in for my forward one.
Yeah, a lot of tempers were lost regarding Cunha across channels and spaces, and just watching it unfold is just like, guys, this is just a game. Like, come on now.
Yeah,
come on.
Yeah, and also, it's not your, like, you don't have to take it personally that Cunha lost his rag. Like, it's not your fault as a manager for rostering him. Like, it's annoying, but yeah, like you said, it's just a game. Like, he's not injured and out for the season. Like, he'll be back in 3 games.
I mean, Cunha owners should count themselves lucky they didn't get the ban in the first place.
Yeah, we were all expecting like 5 or 6 games. This is basically, he had 6 games, they just cut it in half and they had a bit of a reprieve in between. That's the way they should look at it.
Yeah. I love this game. Yeah, I mean, now we're kind of going into like the business end of the season as well, right? Blank game weeks, double game weeks on the horizon. Mm-hmm. There's still more fixtures as well to be planned out. I think once the FA Cup quarterfinals kind of plays out, then the dust finally settles and we'll see like our final path into regular season or even playoffs as well. I guess you're only in our lifestyle league, right? So we don't have playoffs there from what I remember.
No, we don't have playoffs. We've got like an inter-league sort of final 3-game like fun, but it's only for like a very minimal part. It's more of like a just a bit of a final throw of the dice. But yeah, obviously, I find playoffs incredibly frustrating because it tends to be that's the point of the season where there's so many doubles or blank game weeks and teams are on the beach and just throwing anything at things. And the last game of the season, which is super fun, but it's also just absolute carnage. So if you've got a playoff final resting on that game week, it's complete and utter luck of the draw, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, Ross used to have it in our old home league where I think they ignored double game weeks in the league, especially because of the exact reason that you mentioned as well. But I kind of enjoy the chaos that it comes with. I mean, obviously, if you're on the right side of it, it's way more fun of an experience, right? But yeah, I guess playoffs can be a bit anticlimactic, especially when you've had such a good season. You know, you've been top of the league for so long, and then it just kind of crumbles into nothing when you face the lowest team in the league and they just have an absolute blinder.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think we've all been burnt by it in the past. I think it's getting to the point now where I've also benefited from it as well. I mean, it was the league, the test league last season, the auction league. So I was in a playoff final against Gavin last game of the season and I was on my stag do in Poland and I was in a bad way and basically somehow won, despite being miles down at halftime, purely because Eze and Mateta just absolutely teed off. And it was very much, rather than feeling smug about the situation, I just felt incredibly relieved because I knew I did not deserve that win at all.
Yeah, man, that's sometimes how luck can go in this game, and you need it sometimes, right? To win a title, etc. So
yeah, of course you do, and I think it's one of those you just got to take the rough with this move. Like the Cunha owners, yes, it absolutely sucks, but ultimately, the way I look at it, the luck will probably even itself out. If not this season, then next season or last season.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let me do all the boring biz part of the pod now. So, listeners, welcome back to the Banter Boys podcast. You found the regular free episodes that we kind of do game week to game week. why I say free is because the other episodes that we have are on our Patreon, where you can access them for the lowest price it's ever going to be, for $1 a month. So you find the waiver series out there. We do some guest episodes sometimes as well with some of our Inside Tracks folks, or just members from our community as well. And we've also rolled out our banter board, which is kind of a little website that one of our Discord members has built up. Right now, the main thing is really just picking waiver options from your leagues, and it's all customized based on your league. You download that little CSV file, plug it in, and it suggests things powered by AI. Don't ask me all the details. Best place to kind of find out more is joining the Discord, which is free of charge, right? But back to the regular pod biz. So typical format for today's episode is we have two halves. In the first half, we do a data dump, and then we do league updates where we kind of catch up in our league, see how we're doing. We take our halftime pint, and then we jump back in to answer any questions that we get from our Discord. Other than that, what I'll get Ross to do is quickly plug the socials. So Ross, can you please do that right here?
Yeah, for sure. So you can message us on Twitter and Instagram. Our handles at BantaB. On Discord, in the Draft PL channel, BantaBoys, #6585. On Reddit, /Banta_boys. You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, SoundCloud, and YouTube, all under the name of BantaBoys.
Okay, so hopefully you've listened to Ross. If you're listening to us on Spotify, can you please go to our main page, give us a 5-star rating if you haven't done so already. We truly, truly appreciate it. We're trying to hit that 100 mark milestone before the end of the season. If you're listening to us on YouTube, if you don't mind doing the same thing, if you're not already following or subscribing to our content, if you don't mind hitting the thumbs up button, we truly, truly appreciate it. It just kind of fuels the algorithm, helps spread the word about who we are, what we do. I mean, mainly talking shite, but yeah. We're all about fan tracks and the beautiful, beautiful game of football. But yeah, that's all the boring biz out the way. I guess to kind of timestamp this, we're recording on Tuesday evening BST while the Champions League games are going on at the moment. Aston Villa won their game 3-1 earlier. Arsenal are playing at the moment, winning 3-1 away as well. Yeah, I don't know. Is there anything else we should touch on before we get started?
No, I think let's fire away. Let's have at it.
All right, let's go.
Ay, 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 ay. Fantasy with the Banta Boys.
All right, so starting with the data dump, we're going to look back at Game Week 27, starting with key passes. As always, the highest number recorded in Game Week 27 was 6 by two players, Enzo Fernandez and Kluivert? I don't know. Depends which country you're from, I guess, how you want to pronounce it. That Bournemouth guy. You know who I'm talking
Justin.
about. And then 5... yeah. And then 5 key passes by Luis Diaz. Thoughts?
I mean, Enzo just continues to rack them up, which is... I mean, we had some conversation in the Discord earlier this week about what would happen when Lavia comes back. Obviously, you're a Chelsea fan. Do you have any views on what happens to that midfield if/when Lavia returns to the team?
So I don't know if it's Lavia dependent anymore now, because he's still not back. But if you look at like Enzo's numbers in terms of key passes, there was obviously like a little back-to-back patch where he didn't record a single key pass, which were the games against West Ham and Brighton. Yep. And I'm just wondering if it's because Maresca has kind of figured out a way to survive without Nico Jackson. He's kind of found an alternate solution in Pedro Neto being able to run the channels, and it's worked out an absolute treat at the moment. So I don't know now if it's been Nico all along. Obviously, like Lavia does add another element to our setup and does free up Enzo quite a lot more. But yeah, it's he had another beast game, and I'm just wondering, like, I'm not gonna lie, when I saw these numbers, the skepticism that we discussed did kind of come into my mind, and I'm now like, do I want to maybe potentially sell him on a high and avoid this sort of sinusoidal behavior of output? Like, it's a weird one right now with Chelsea in general.
Yeah, I think so. I've just pulled up Enzo's numbers here. So obviously that's back-to-back scores of nearly 20. But the Aston Villa, we need to preface that with that's a goal and then like six ghost points, which is good against the Villa team. But that's if the goal wasn't there, the 6 ghost points aren't going to blow you away. And then obviously Southampton on the weekend. It was a 4-0 win, so 19 is impressive without a goal or assist. But that's against a really, really, really poor Southampton team. So, I wouldn't blame people for thinking about maybe looking to sell him on a high. I guess it depends what you can get. But at the same time, he has been very, very consistent since he, took that starting place in the team. But I guess when you look at it, so Leicester this weekend, you'd expect him to get double digits there in terms of ghost points there or thereabouts. But then Arsenal and Tottenham, could that slow things a bit? I think realistically, Chelsea's running until sort of that playoff picture is pretty damn good.
So. I mean, like, if speaking of the playoff picture, is the first game for playoffs Liverpool? I think
it is.
Yeah. So I guess if you can kind of trade a bit before that, then that would be fine. Like maybe trading to the manager so that they land the Ipswich fixture, because you kind of gotta give them something. Right?
Yeah, you gotta give them a
nibble on in that.
Yeah,
sense.
So you'd be giving them Ipswich, Fulham, Everton, which could be Ipswich already down, Fulham not sort of on the beach, Everton on the beach. This is the key thing here, though. Liverpool by May the 3rd could have wrapped the title up, could be resting players if they're still in the Champions League.
Yeah, that's also
as mad as that sounds to say right now, but they're so far ahead they could easily pretty much wrapped it up. And that Chelsea game, I'm not saying they're going to put out a young 11, but it might well be that they're not playing with the intensity they are right now purely because they've been able to take their eye off the ball. So I wouldn't necessarily look at that Liverpool playoff game as a oh my god, avoid any Chelsea assets. It just might well be that you need to keep an eye on the context of the next few weeks. If Liverpool continue to win every week as they have been doing, when it gets close to that run-in, then they're pretty much going to be home and hosed by that point.
Yeah, and I mean, Chelsea are going to continue to chase a Champions League spot, right?
Of course.
As much as Maresca wants to downplay the team's aspirations, etc., all of that. What was the reference that Mourinho used to say? It was like a baby deer or something like that, or baby giraffe. He used to call the teams that were not quite good enough for the title.
Yeah.
He had a particular reference, animal or whatever.
Yeah, that's ringing around in my head somewhere. But I think realistically, if you're a Chelsea fan or even someone that's looking at it from afar, considering where you were December, thinking, hang on a damn second, we might be able to challenge or push for a title here. The least you can expect would be Champions League football, top 5. If it's going to be top 5 for the Premier League this year.
Yeah. Kluivert, Justin, let's call him. I guess no surprise here. He's pretty much central to everything that Bournemouth does.
Yeah, still absolutely regret dropping him earlier in the season. It's painful to talk about.
Oh, what?
Yeah. So
no. In our league.
Yeah, in our league. So at one point I had Semenyo, Avanilson, Kluivert and Tavernier. And so I was like, I'm not going to run out 4 Bournemouth assets week in, week out. But this was the point where, this was when he'd had, I think there was like 4 games where he was benched for 2 of them. And the 2 that he started, he maybe scored like 4.5 or 5.5 and was getting like maximum 60 minutes. So yeah, I dropped him. Nothing happened the first week. Then the week after that, someone picked him up, and then someone set him on fire. And yeah, I regret it because it pains me now. But if you look at the numbers, it was an entirely logical decision.
Yeah, I mean, hindsight can be a real bitch at times, especially in the fantasy world.
Exactly.
Luis Diaz. I'm going to chalk this down to he was finally playing on his natural left wing, where I think is his best position for Liverpool. Yeah, that Gakpo injury kind of came as a blessing, but now with Cody kind of fit and back in the picture again. Who knows what's gonna happen with the Liverpool setup? I mean, maybe the Champions League fixture tomorrow gives us a bit of a clue, but yeah, I wonder what like managers are doing right now, like owners, because he went through an absolute dire patch of Fantrax output.
Yeah, I mean, their fixtures are so attractive. So we've got Southampton.
I mean, all their fixtures are attractive
that's a good
because
point.
It's Liverpool, right?
Yeah, but the next 5 games: Southampton, Everton, Fulham, West Ham, Leicester, then Tottenham, Chelsea. Yeah. None of those teams can defend. Arguably, Everton have been a bit better. But I mean, if I'm a Diaz owner and I don't have Gakpo, I think I'm probably trying to trade him out on that high. Like, if you can.
Yeah, same. I mean, go to the Gakpo owner. That's the first start, right?
Yeah, of course it is. I mean, yeah, earlier in the season he looked really exciting on that left-hand side, but when he's played at centre forward, he's obviously not getting a huge amount of the ball, not getting the successful take-ons and dribbles really. So yeah, or flip that, if you can buy low on Gakpo, then do it.
Yeah, that's also a good shout, especially if you're the Diaz owner.
Yeah, exactly.
Just play that cuff based on how the team sheet looks, really.
Yeah, I'd keep an eye on tomorrow night.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens. You know, it might well be that I'd always say with trades and things like that, maybe wait to see until the last match has happened, because one, if you trade away Diaz, you know, tomorrow morning, or when this pod comes out before Liverpool have played, and you trade him and he gets injured, in my opinion, I just feel really bad. Even though it's nobody's fault, you just feel really bad. If Gakpo gets injured and you just brought him in, you're just going to be really annoyed, hindsight-wise, that you've probably paid over the odds for an injured Gakpo or Jota, for example. So I'd always try and hold off as much as possible in terms of, like, if there's a game in between.
Yeah, I mean, even wait until Thursday evening if you're in UK time zone, because there'll be Europa as well. There's Conference League for Chelsea.
Exactly.
So there's still quite a lot of football to play before we get to the weekend. All right, let's move on to the next category. Shots and how many were on target. So the highest number of shots recorded in Game Week 27 was 7 by Cole Palmer. He had 3 of them on target. 6 shots attempted by Savio, also known as Savinho. He had 1 of them on target. Cunha had 3 of his 6 shots on target. And then finally, 5 shots attempted by Alcaraz from Everton. He had 1 of them on target. Thoughts, Elliot?
Yeah, Palmer, interesting, because I think he's getting a lot of stick for sort of going, from what I'm seeing online, he's getting a lot of stick from Chelsea fans for sort of going off the boil, but his numbers are still pretty good in terms of Fantrax. I'd apply the Enzo tax regarding Palmer in terms of Southampton. You know, one player alone having 7 shots, let alone 3 on target, 3 of them being on target and not scoring, just suggests that Southampton just letting a ton of shots on goal. Savio, that feels a bit like the Doku situation from last week that I know Andrew brought up with the left analog stick, right analog stick. 6 shots on target, 6 shots and only 1 being on target suggests to me you really need to stop shooting on sight unless you can actually have a decent shot. Cunha, as many shots on target as he tried fouls on Saturday on the same player, so that's exciting. And then, Alcaraz, mercurial talent in terms of Fantrax. I'm not sure what people are doing with him. What are your thoughts on the shots on target, boys?
Well, I mean, let's go in reverse. Alcaraz, I think he only played because Doucouré's wife was giving birth.
Correct.
And the thing is, I think Doucouré comes right back in, because after Alcaraz had that wonder moment, you know, Doucouré missed that game because of the yellow card suspension thingy. I generally thought, okay, goal and assist, actually had a great game IRL, and he just went straight back to the bench. I was like, okay, shit. But Moyes must know what he's doing, because Everton are undefeated since he's taken over. I think it's really whoever moves to Alcaraz the quickest, then you get the joy of actually playing him in a league. Would I hold on to him? I'd probably drop him if I was in a tight spot and I needed a starter. I mean, we're into the crunch part of the season.
Exactly.
I don't think we can afford to carry dead assets and screw ourselves when it gets later into the game week. Like, when is Everton even playing? They're playing the final fixture of the Saturday as well.
Yes, you only have a few games after that.
Right, and it's a lot of the popular teams that are playing after that as well, right? Your Chelseas, your Spurs, Arsenal's, United's, both Manchester and Newcastle, that is, and Bournemouth as well. So the only team that you can maybe target is West Ham, because no fucking way are you going to grab Leicester assets, right?
I mean, the only Leicester assets you'd possibly want, I guess, would be if Buonanotte starting on the off chance, and even then, I'd be thinking about it twice at this point. I can imagine some people still hold Vardy for some reason.
Yeah.
But outside, yeah, exactly. Why would you? You might as well just run 10 players.
Yeah. I mean, Cunha, we just know, talisman theory really with him. Everything kind of just goes through him, so it makes sense why he's up there. Savio is... I feel like he's always in and out in terms of these numbers, and obviously that could be down to, him actually starting games and not. But it tends to be like one of the wingers tends to just pop up, and like you alluded to with Andrew's Doku reference or whatnot. Like, I've seen Savio in person, electric player, loves a fucking shot on goal. Maybe a bit greedy, and probably not the right player for Haaland, but yeah, it's no surprise to see him here. And finally, the reason I kind of wanted to end with Palmer as well, is it audacious to say that this is probably the lowest you can probably get Palmer for in terms of a trade? Because I'll admit, as a Chelsea fan watching it, I'm going to chalk it down to fatigue, because he's played some of the most minutes for Chelsea, and we were a bit over-reliant on him for goals and assists and whatnot. And the shots that you see here as well, like, one of them that was on target, he should have definitely scored. I show credit to Ramsdale, he made a good save, but then a couple of the other shots, it just looked like, it was like, yes, in great opportunities, but kind of fluffed at it a little bit, not like fully fit in that sense. So... Listen, Chelsea fans are always going to be bitching and complaining about, lack of goals from a player or lack of trophies, because I think we've kind of gone through that era of being bombarded with so much success that it's now just expected every season.
Yep,
so I tend to take Chelsea fan opinions with a grain of salt a lot of the times, but yeah, I don't think Palmer is gonna drop off by any means in terms of an asset. But yeah, again, I think that this is probably your best opportunity to buy low on him all season.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I think I'd definitely look to bring him in if the owner was amenable to it. I mean, I wouldn't say overpay for him. You know what you're going to get with Palmer, and I'm just looking at his numbers now. Largely, he's going to give you double digits each week. I mean, yeah, we're looking at these. So he's not scored since January 14th. So he's not scored in 6 weeks or so. But all it takes is a goal from one of the previous few weeks, and those numbers are looking big. Someone drawing a penalty, something as minor as that, is all it is. So yeah, I'd have no issues with people trying to bring him in, and completely agree with you about his stock. Though it shouldn't be, in terms of fan tracks, though, it will be the cheapest you can possibly get him, but that cheap will still be very expensive.
Oh, for sure. Definitely. But I think it's kind of moved on from like dealing with the likes of like a Haaland and Salah, but now you're looking at the likes of maybe like a Cunha sort of trade.
Yeah, I mean, if you it might be a first rounder +1, whereas before it would literally just have to be someone in that 1 to 4 bracket. Salah, Haaland, Bruno, Palmer. I think. Yeah,
exactly.
I mean, for example, so if we look at, sorry to interrupt. So if we look at
go ahead.
So the Super League draft was taking place the other day. Palmer went second. So there's still those that value him incredibly highly. So if you can get him, anything cheaper than 5th round value, then I'd say, it's not 5th round, sorry, 5th pick, then I'd say do it.
Yeah, agreed. All right, next category is accurate crosses into the box. Highest number was 4 by Pedro Porro. Quick thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, if you're a Porro owner, you're probably relieved he's back in the team after the week before. But I'd be nervous about his minutes as a guarantee going forward. What about you? What are your thoughts on Porro generally?
I mean, it was tough kind of coming up against him, and thank God it didn't matter in the end.
Yeah, that's fair.
And especially against like Man City, it's like
so infuriating.
I didn't really expect it. Exactly right. But no, I agree. I agree with what you're saying. I think at the moment, in terms of being an all-rounded fullback, it feels like Spence is probably the best one at their disposal. and is probably why Poro's getting rotated. What's interesting is how managers are going to value him in next season's draft as well.
Poro or Spence?
I mean, both.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people would have taken what Poro probably saw him like round 4 in a lot of leagues, I suppose. That sort
maybe
of,
around 3 years earliest.
Exactly. I think he was in that category of once you've got past Trent, then the sort of like next lot of defenders. And I think he's probably been quite frustrating hold this season because he's put up some massive scores and put up some really terrible scores at the same time. But yeah, I think the frustrating thing is, would you want for next year, if we're looking at next season, would you want a Spurs fullback handcuff? It's not like the one back in the day when it might have been, did we have Kyle Walker and Trippier on the right and Danny Rose and Ben Davis maybe on the left, which people would maybe look at doing. I think with Porro and Spence, for example, they're pretty good, but they will put up threes. That will happen. And yeah, I think a lot of people will be very wary. It might well be that we see either of them leave Spurs. And while all us Fantrax managers have loved Spence, who's just come in, we've pretty much picked him up on a free, and he's been great. And a lot of friends, there's a lot of my friends that are Spurs fans have also actually loved Spence. Does that mean that Ange feels the same way?
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, who knows? Ange might not even be there.
I mean, he probably shouldn't be, but I think he probably will be.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, extra categories. So the outliers for them, tackles 1. There was a lot of people that got the highest number, which was 5. Cucurella, Hall, Kovacic, Christensen, Minter, Timber, and Udogi. I've been hearing people mentioning it as Udoji, which sounds weird on commentary. Dispossessions, the highest number was 6 by Wood. Interceptions, there was a high of 4 by Downs from Southampton and Hoyson. Clearances, there was a high of 10 by Hoyson. Successful dribbles, there was a high of 7 by Cluvet. Aerials, there was a high of 8 by Muniz. And block shots, there was a high of 4 by Danso. Thoughts, Elliot?
Yeah, on the Udoji thing, that might, I guess, potentially be people hearing the word Doge a lot with the whole Musk nonsense, so it might well be that that's slowly drifting into
maybe.
They're just drifting into their head. In terms of general ones, Wood with 6 dispossessions is interesting because he doesn't really, he's not really a dribbler, so that feels out of character. Good to see Dean just consistently being incredible. That's brilliant. Muniz with the aerials, I think anybody who picked him up with a stream and then saw him start against United on the weekend, I'd probably hold on to him in the off chance that Silva's decided to let Jimenez ride the bench for a couple of weeks. I think generally Cucurella is interesting, but I think that's just Chelsea just had a walkover weekend, and anybody who stacked Chelsea defenders just laughed all the way to the bank.
Yeah, we saw some ridiculous stacks in our Discord as well. Somebody tripled up.
Yeah, brave,
it was
brave
ridiculous.
People. Yeah.
What's funny about Hoyson popping up in this category as well? Remember we got the fake leak about
he's done his
tore his ACL in training. I'm sure somebody must have bitten that news. Like
100%. I think people within the Discord were like were attempting to bite at it. They really didn't want to, but they were also so frightened that it might be true. And the fact that a player that most managers didn't even know 6 months ago could have caused that reaction from a completely random tweet from somebody with no credibility just shows how much people care about this game.
Yeah, who would have thought AFC bollocks is not a trustable source?
I mean, not me.
All right, let's move on to the next segment then, which is the league updates. All right, Elliot, talk to me, bro. How was Game Week 27?
I mean, yeah, pretty good. So I won 106 points to 91. I've now gone 17 points clear. I think similar situation to you in the IGL. Feeling pretty good about that, but obviously wary that, there's anything can happen at this point. So let's just, not be too pleased with myself there. But yeah, it was one of those where I was feeling about a bit 50-50 about it, but then a few goals went my way, and then Monday night I was just going into it needing Bowen or JWP to just not have a car crash of a night, and Kilman not absolutely smash it. And thankfully Bowen, I know it was an assist in the end, but once that had gone in, I knew I could relax pretty much. That was great. In terms of standouts, Mikolenko, as Robbie has said in the Discord, his first ever assist for Everton was a nice surprise. Salah, again, just being an absolute train all season. João Pedro continuing to do the business the last few weeks. Semenyo, again, been brilliant. And then, Big Dean Huijsen doing bits, which is brilliant. In terms of regrets, so I traded for Andreas Pereira a few weeks ago on the cheap for Estupinian, before Estupinian got injured. And then obviously Pereira has... I was gambling on him getting his place back, essentially. Didn't happen, dropped him. And then after that, I thought, you know what, I honestly can't be asked to waver him back in with ESR being out, especially when they said he might only be out for, just the one game week. But now maybe it probably would have been wise to pick him up. So that's, I guess, the only real regret I have. A few roster concerns that I'll come to in a minute. But yeah, if you want to jump in with how your game week went.
Yeah, man. I mean, in terms of your points lead, I would feel comfortable if you had playoffs as well. Just because I feel a bit more comfortable with my 18-point lead, just because the 3 game week cutoff, like, I'm still gonna. I mean, as much as I want to take my foot off the gas sort of thing, I still want to have that option of, or I want to have that achievement of finishing top of the overall IGL table, even though it means absolutely nothing.
Yeah, no, I completely get you. Yeah, it's just a nice, smug feeling.
Yeah, exactly, right? But yeah, speaking about IGL, I won there 97-90. Like Elliot mentioned, 18 points gap now. The standouts were Chris Richards, been an absolute machine since he kind of took over Chalo's spot. Yeah, so reliable, man. Simicast, I picked up as soon as I saw lineups come out. I think I dropped Ajer for him. A little bit of regret, just because Ajer has shown he's starting to get good ghost points and stuff like that. But listen, when you're playing for the Liverpool defense, there's always potential clean sheet and upside. I didn't get the upside, got the clean sheet, it's fine. I went with Delict as well in that league. Absolute jammy goal. After I saw Ipswich score the opening goal, I was livid with myself. I was like, how dare I go United defense? Like,
yeah.
And the thing is like, you'd back Maguire for the goal threat because, I mean, he has shown in the past that Slabhead does have returns in it. And he absolutely ghosts like a monster. So I feel a bit lucky with the Delict return. And same thing like you, owning Mo Salah has made everything so much easier in life.
I know. I know you were saying last week this is the first time. Was it you saying the first time you've had him in draft?
Yeah,
and
ever.
It is insane because it's just one of those where you might have the brief. Oh, I need Salah to get me 10 points. Then you're like, oh, he's got 19. Okay, sick.
Yeah.
Like it's honestly just that. And yeah, you're watching any game that you're watching. You're like, at some point he's going to get the ball and he's going to score or create a massive chance, and that's. You can just relax a bit more when you have him.
Yeah, exactly. In terms of regrets, so starting Lukic, I know the silly thing is, it's one of those. It's classic scenario of you don't take the advice that you give. Yep. Told so many people, we discussed it on the pod. If Andres Pereira is starting with Lukic, he's not gonna get the corners. Lukic, that is.
Yep.
And I mean, I didn't think it was gonna be that bad though. 0 points. Like,
yeah. I guess you were hoping like 6.5. Maybe he'll like have the odd free kick or corner. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Absolutely nothing. And that's kind of what inspired the whole feature on the banter board to have the breakdown of the free kicks and the corners every single game week, which you can kind of reference because not only that, Harrison taking over corners from Garner as well. It's just like it needs to be a weekly check, basically. How things are kind of changing. Yeah,
it honestly does. I mean, who could have foreseen Lukic taking any set pieces earlier this season? That's
exactly.
It's one of those things that if you're not checking it, you would never think about it.
Yeah. Yeah, and that one went under the radar for a lot of people, like even
did.
Robbie and stuff like that. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Roster concerns. So there, I don't really have a dependable forward two because Nico Jackson is still out injured. So I think my forward twos are rotating between Tall Paul and Mr. Philogene, the new beast in town, I guess.
Yeah, that's not great.
Not sure what to do there.
It's not great.
It's not great at all.
No.
So I need to maybe look at possibly doing a trade or something like that. I don't know if I can maybe trade out Ethan Pinnock for a decent mid. If I was offering Ethan Pinnock, who would you take or who do you think you can get as a midfielder?
Midfielder for Pinnock. Hang on, let me just pull up Pinnock's numbers for the last few weeks. So I've sort of taken my eye off the boil with Pinnock, just in terms of I have no want to bring him in any league. So it's just. And I've not been against him, so he's in a bit of a blind spot for me, so I'm just going to pull them up. Won't be a second. But I guess he's got name values to an extent. And Brent, he has got some goal threat. But I think given all of the injuries at the moment, I think not just with midfielders, but I think people are sort of closing ranks a touch, if that makes any sense. Could you prey on the fact that someone's panicking about Dango? I mean, I certainly wouldn't make that move. If I owned Dango, but that could be one which could have upside. So I'm just picking up his numbers now. My internet's been incredibly slow. Yeah, Dango could be an interesting one. I'm just trying to think who else. I'm basically trying to think who, in terms of injuries, right? So his numbers haven't really been that inspiring. I think you're going to struggle for Dango. Ignore that one. I'm basically trying to think who is
it's
likely
a bit of a tough one.
to put. It is a really tough one because I think I'd probably just hold him.
Yeah.
Because I don't see the value there in terms of midfielders. I don't know. Who would you have in mind?
Well, I mean, if I didn't go midfielder, I was thinking of going for a forward like Njai, who could possibly come back in April, because we only have 2 game weeks in March, right? So there is still a lot of time to kind of be patient with an asset that is coming back from injury. Maybe a Delap. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I discussed Njai in the Discord. I can't remember if you were involved in that discussion, but the way I see it, Everton are pretty much safe now. They have no reason to rush him back. They have no reason whatsoever to rush him back. And it might well be that, he's back in training in April. He might be keen to play, but why take the risk on arguably one of your most exciting players? Picking up another injury. So I'd be, not to say that I don't think if he comes back he's not a good asset. I just would be wary of Moyes maybe saying, look, we don't need to rush him back as much as we would do if we were very much still in a relegation fight. So
I'd probably need to do a package deal then with Pinnock, like Pinnock +1, like a James Ward-Prowse or something like that, if I was to get some sort of reasonable midfielder, I think.
Yeah.
It's going to be a tricky one.
I think it is going to be a tricky one. I think you could make something happen, but I think, I do think you'd struggle. Maybe you could go for someone, if you're looking for a forward, like a Strand Larsen or something, someone who's recently come back into the team and hasn't fully come back. Because someone might have Strand Larsen as they might have ended up picking him up after he'd been dropped and have him as a forward 4. And they'd be lucky to do so, because that means they'd have a strong forward line, but might be more amenable to saying, you know what, I don't desperately need to hold him.
Yeah. Ilanga is another one I thought of, kind of went off the boil last 3 game weeks.
Yeah, so I tried to pick up Ilanga last week. Obviously, him having a great game last night probably didn't help. But I'd definitely say Ilanga or even Callum Hudson-Odoi. One of those two would be brilliant, because I think they're still going to put up decent enough numbers and be amongst the goals. I don't think they're going to blow anybody away, but I wouldn't be surprised if they average 8.5, 9 points the rest of the season.
Yeah, ideally, I would like to also. I mean, with a point about Nottingham Forest is going after assets with something to still kind of play for.
Exactly,
Forest are definitely going to chase Champions League, right? So
I'm always a keen proponent for that. As the season goes on, being wary of teams that are on the beach, or teams that are about to be on the beach, and it might well be that it looks like you're doing a crazy deal, trying to shift someone out, but if it means that you're picking up players, talisman in teams that are really pushing. Then I personally think that's usually worked well.
Yeah. In terms of waiver picks for IGL, I dropped Delict. I took the goal, ran with it. I dropped Lukic because I think he's suspended for 2 games now.
Yeah, he
got
is,
another yellow card. I dropped James Garner because he's lost corners completely and has now turned into a bit of a steady Eddie asset. And I picked up Mr. Philogene, Cresswell, who seems to be taking corners with James Ward-Prowse for West Ham, and Diego Gomez, the Brighton midfielder. This last pickup was honestly fueled by the eye test. Like, looking at him play the through balls into dangerous positions, it's a very enticing.
Yeah, I mean, it's just all upside with Diego Gomez, I guess. That for me, with Brighton, it's the same issue as it has been all season with a lot of Brighton assets. Minutes, is Herzler going to stick with them? Is he going to rotate? So I guess if you're picking up pretty much on a free, he's an easy drop if he doesn't play. If he does and he, picks up a goal, it might well be you can flip him and trade him to someone else who's getting excited by him. I mean, we've seen certain Brighton midfielders gain some excitement unnecessarily this season, so why not have another one?
And I mean, I think was it me that posted the graphic in our Discord about the most substitutions in the league so far? I think Brighton is top of that table right now.
That sounds about right to me. I mean, it's weird because they've got a deep squad in terms of, like, if you look at centre midfield, Baleba's been brilliant, but outside of that, they've not had like, oh my god, they have to play this person in centre midfield. They've got a lot of sort of like 7 out of 10s. Not in positionally, I mean literally performance-wise. So you can see, no one can be too aggrieved if Herzler says, you know what, I'm not going to start you this week. I'm going to start this person instead. Like we earlier in the season, like at the start of the season, obviously it was Milner. Then he got a very bad injury. Then we had Ayari was in for a while. Then people were calling for O'Reilly. Now Diego Gomez. There's so many floating around that they're always going to get subbed in and out because there's going to be someone else, next in line that's pretty decent to come in.
Yeah. And I mean, worst case scenario, that could always just be a streamer spot for me, which never hurts to have in a roster.
Yeah, exactly.
In terms of DPL, so got the win there. I mean, good news and bad news is, the bad news is I missed out on the Super League by 3 points and obviously points for margin.
Man.
It's a bit frustrating, but given how my season started there and the fact that I came this close is now like, okay, I can be eyeing up to finish second overall in the table and still finish in a money spot, right? So I'm going to focus on the positives.
Good way of looking at it. Yeah, great way of looking at it.
Standout performers. Munoz, absolute gem of a human being. You saw that he went 7th pick in the first round in the Super League.
Yeah, draft, I did. The thing is, I can't hate it. Like, I literally just can't hate it. He's consistently put up huge numbers. I had him last season when he came into league, got him for, 2 fab or something like that. And you think, he's 20, I think he was 27 when he came in last year, and thinking, this guy's not done anything, come out of nowhere. How good can he be? And he showed signs last season. But then this season, he's just been an unstoppable force. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I think things just finally clicked for Glasner, and now Crystal Palace are just playing the football that Glasner expects them to play, sort of thing. And I mean, he's obviously had a little bit of difficulty not having Wharton there the entire time, but I do think Wharton is a big, important piece of the puzzle for how Crystal Palace play. But it'll be interesting as well with Mateta out potentially for like a game week or 2 after he got that ridiculous kick in the face.
Yeah, 25 stitches in his ear. I mean, insane.
Oh, yeah. Insane. But yeah, other standout performers for me, Mikolenko, like you mentioned, he got the assist. Damsgaard having a phenomenal season. Eze doing well. Enzo, Pedro Neto as well. I grabbed up Pedro Neto in this league, I think, for like 1 fab after I think managers got frustrated with him. But I think I timed it perfectly and also with a lot of luck, because I never foresee Maresca actually deploying him as the number 9, but listen, it's worked an absolute treat. And in terms of regrets, trusting Garnacho in my starting lineup, I just need to let go of him at this point.
Yeah, I think we've discussed Garnacho before, and I just said, your midfield is strong enough without him. Just let him be someone else's problem.
That's the thing, is like, I know the minute I drop him, Genie in my league is going to pick him up, and I've mentioned this on the TDS stream as well. He's just gonna throw him right back at me in a trade. Like,
yeah, exactly. But I do genuinely think you will sleep better when you've dropped him from your team, because you're just you can, if he has a good performance, or I'm someone who I quite enjoy watching him play and just running at people. But also, if you own him, it's incredibly frustrating because you're just thinking, right, there's an easy key pass there, or there's an easy, do you know what I mean? There's an easy solution here rather than running, down a dark alley. But he's one of those players who I think just even though it hurts and you ideally would want to get a few fab for him, someone will probably spend 3 or 4 fab on him if they have it, which you'd rather have, but just let him be someone else's problem.
Yeah. In terms of concerns, no real concerns. Like you said, honestly, the only concern is like really having Garnacho. But yeah, just need to solve that. And no waiver picks because DPL processes on Thursday and Friday. So that's it in terms of updates. What I think we'll do is take our halftime pint, and we will be back after the break with some questions. So we'll see in a bit. And we are back. So you mentioned you forgot to do your roster concerns. We can quickly touch on that.
That's what I mean. Yeah, I absolutely love talking about my roster concerns and how things are falling apart. No, defense slightly. If Lewis Hall's out for a long time, I'll be very sad because that was a lovely, lovely free agent pickup early in the season. So that's one concern. I also think that Eddie Howe might be a bit coy on what's going on there. So I don't think we're going to get news in the timeline that I'd like it, so I might have to just hold him this game. We can see what happens. Obviously, as you know, this league is a lineup lock league, so having Jed Spence is a bit more of a pain in the backside.
Yeah.
So I've been trying to sort of 2-for-1 him to the Poro owner, but haven't had a bite yet. So we'll see what happens. I mean, again, with Spence, I picked him up for 1 fab or whatever. I'm happy to hold him and see if he manages to, if it is a rotation of 3 and he's, one of that can cover both sides and isn't just now becoming the sub for either of those two. So yeah, I'm looking at that one. Goalkeeper situation, I've sinned and I have 2 goalkeepers and I have Pope and Dubravka. I know I hate it.
No!
I mean,
It's funny because on the waiver pod today, I was like, there's always somebody out there that rosters 2 goalkeepers.
I hate it. The only reason I do it is because this is a lineup lock league, and it was, whilst there was like in between sort of a transfer of power between Pope and Dubravka, it was, I don't want to risk just having the wrong one and it not happening, but then I might as well have not bothered because they've both been putting up crap numbers since Pope returned. So it's decide whether I want to try and trade either of them out. Well, I say either. It would be, do I want to drop Dubravka and keep Pope, or do I want to trade out Pope and try and pick someone else up? I think realistically, it's probably just going to be better just to run with Pope and hope that Newcastle get a bit better at the back for now. So yeah, generally I don't like it, but it's just one of those where, especially as we're getting to that crunch point of the season and Newcastle still playing for potentially pushing for Europe, I think it's probably better that, there's no one else really obvious that's available in that league anyway. And then last one, which is something that I think a lot of us are feeling, and shout out to Haroon who's back with us now. Odegaard frustrations, man. Just, he's my first round pick. And it's just been... And the most annoying thing, it's not been a disaster. I wish it'd been a disaster and I would just you know what, I'm going to completely cut my losses. It's just been sad. It's just been a bit of a feeble disappointment. So, there's no... He still has some trade value, but I think that this is going to sound crazy. I genuinely maybe see him as a trade-in. And hear me out. Reason why. When did he? So he performed well last season when who was at right back? Ben White. Who was at right wing? Saka. Could we see a situation in 4 weeks' time where Saka is back in at right wing and Ben White is in at right back? Maybe. If I could get him low, I'd think about it. And again, they've not had any penalties, which is frustrating. But he still might be on penalties and direct free kicks. So, we'll see what happens. What are your thoughts on Odegaard generally?
No, I completely get that logic. Yeah, Saka and him definitely have some sort of a chemistry or combination going on, and he's definitely missed his partner in crime. I mean, what's even more frustrating is the fact that he scored tonight in the Champions League against PSV. Like he's getting his returns outside the Premier League, which I can imagine how frustrating it must be as an owner in fan tracks. But no, I mean, Itas as well. Like he does a lot of great stuff on the pitch, but sometimes he's kind of forced into this role where he needs to pull the strings from the back and let everyone else go do their thing. And yeah, I would say like I would say owners in general this season have been unlucky in terms of his points production. I mean, he had that serious injury this season as well, and that never helps with players' momentum during the season and all that. But yeah, I kind of like that mad logic of buying him low.
Yeah, obviously it depends on how low you can get him, but you're probably going to get him for like round 3 or 4 value realistically.
Yeah, it's gonna be a tricky one to manage. Yeah, I'm just wondering who would you potentially go for then? Like right now, would you look at that Super League draft board as like rankings in a sense?
Potentially, I guess you've got 12 very active managers there, but then you've also got managers that've got very different viewpoints on what players are worth. We've seen like Munoz at 7. I don't hate it, but I wouldn't be taking him at 7 because I'm thinking surely he's going to come back round in the second round. So yeah, I think that's helpful. I haven't got it up right now, but generally, I guess. Just this off the top of my head, I'd trade Bowen for him?
Yeah, I don't mind it. Oh, by the way, not to rub salt in the wound, but Arsenal just scored the 6th goal and Odegaard got his 2nd.
Oh, man. Okay, well, in that case, don't buy him in right now because you're going to be paying too high.
Yeah. Oh, there's one thing I wanted to quickly discuss before we moved on to the questions. Regarding Pope and Dubravka handcuff, blank game week 29. Newcastle don't play. What are you gonna do?
I pick up a third? No. That's also one thing that's on my mind. I'm sort of starting to think ahead. So it might well be a situation where I drop Dubravka, pick up a second goalkeeper for that one, and then at that point just decide whether I want to keep Pope or not. If Pope keeps putting up 4.5s, then I'm not really going to be too worried about keeping hold of him. So yeah, if I was in a league that wasn't lineup lock, I genuinely think I'd probably just for that game week just drop one. Not drop one, I would have dropped both of them. It's just one of those. For anyone that isn't aware that's listening, because it's a lineup lock league or a free agency lock, we also have an extra player on the bench, so it's 17 players. So whilst it sucks having 2 goalkeepers, you're still running with the roster size that you're like sort of used to, which is the only saving grace. But it also means that I think there might be someone else that has 2 keepers, and it just means that there's you are kind of fighting for scraps sometimes.
Yeah, just food for thought. All right, cool. Let's get into some questions. All right, so I will take the first one. So from Draft Pie, if you were doing a 3 things you should know before you play Fantrax video, what would those 3 things be?
Subscribe to Banter Boys Patreon, number 1.
Hey.
Don't draft City defenders. Don't draft. Do not own City defenders. Full stop. Take every genie suggestion with a pinch of salt would be one as well, because it might well be that in 4 weeks' time he'll go, no, I definitely don't do that, and you've completely followed him blindly, because his strategy is his own strategy, and most people won't get that. So yeah, I guess another one. This is I feel bad about this, but it's a slight pet hate of mine. Watch football, actually watch matches. Because, or if not the matches, watch highlights, watch Match of the Day if you're in the UK or can get it overseas. Yeah. Because obviously a lot of, like, the stats tell you a million things, like they're brilliant, but I think so many people miss so much by just not watching the matches, and it's not about necessarily just the eye test, but it's going, right, so this player scored poorly, but you watch the match and go, yeah, but they had 2 goals disallowed that were very, very close, or they, they were let down by a forward, which regularly ran into the wrong areas, and that, you know, if it's another player, that goes better. So yeah, I guess the main three things would be avoid City defenders, be wary. Actually, it's not just I'm throwing a joke jibe at Genie there, but generally, be wary, like get to understand why someone is suggesting a pickup or something, and it might well be that doesn't fit with your strategy. It will be one, and try and watch the highlights, even if it's just on YouTube, where you just watch the goals or something, just so you've got an idea as to the patterns of play and how players are getting on. What about you?
So I thought of two. I think the first one would be, and assuming the scoring system remains the same, key passes are goal dust.
Yep.
The other one, oh my god, why am I blanking on it now?
It's okay, I've got more if you need them.
If I just remembered. So if you're starting the new season, look at the teams that are playing in Europe. If they don't have a history of playing in Europe, downvalue their assets for the coming season.
Yeah, that's a great. Yeah, like a lot of Villa assets this season. Yeah, no, they. Yeah,
dog shit.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. No, that's a great one. Another one of mine would be, don't roster Man United players unless it's Bruno. Just largely doesn't tend to end well. Or you will overpay for what you get.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, there was one that just came to me, but it's just gone. Don't roster Cunha because he might get banned, and then you'll be really annoyed.
Love that. Also, don't wear glasses. All right. Do you want to take our next question?
Yeah, cool. So this one's from Sweetness McBossman. So it's in my league, I've been shopping around KDB, but nobody wants to trade me for him. Who are the 2-3 worst players you would accept back if you were trading away KDB?
Ooh, this is a great question. The problem is like, how can you trade for someone that really isn't starting games? Like,
I know. Well, that is very true. But quite a few people traded for Foden earlier in the season. I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah, it's a name value thing, right?
Of course it is. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess if you're trading 2 to 3 players, then would you just trade a handcuff in at this point?
Oh no, so I got it as who are the two or three. So in terms of like, have you got a few name suggestions is how I read it, rather than what are the two, like what are two, does that make any sense? I mean, a handcuff could work, so. But I'm looking at it in terms of like, he's basically saying, what's the lowest value you would sell him for?
Right. That's an interesting one. Lowest value, boy. I wouldn't take a Steady Eddie for him because most likely they're available in the waiver pool, right? Maybe someone that is like massively return dependent as a midfielder. Would Bowen be that person? Like, since Lopetegui left, he's lost his ghosties, right? But you're not gonna give up Bowen.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I mean, I'd much rather Bowen than KDB right now.
Yeah,
I'm just trying to think. So the way I'm looking at it, if we're looking at KDB running for the season, he's not going to renew a Man City, so this is his swan song farewell situation.
Yeah,
they're out of the Champions League, so he's not going to get saved for the Champions League. They've got FA Cup and that's it. And they're not. And yes, they're still going to be pushing for Europe, but you know, it wouldn't surprise me if Pep finds a way to just give him minutes. Like, I know that Pep's quite often not that person, but also at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised if KDB and Pep have an understanding where it's like, right, you know, especially as we get close to the tail end of the season, KDB gets more minutes. I don't know, on more starts, so I can see why you'd want to roster him. But in terms of the two, I'm trying to think. Yeah, roster dependent. Roster return. Hang on. Would you prefer Kudus or KDB?
I'm gonna take the Kudus pin, the same pin that I'm taking in our league. I've now like accepted my fault, my mistake.
Yeah,
I'm living with it. You know, I'm gonna take it to the grave.
Yeah, Kudus is your Lord and Savior, whether you like it or not.
Yeah. I mean, I thought of a couple names that are maybe absolute minimum. What if you take the likes of like a Cook and Jack Harrison for KDB? That's probably the low absolute absolute desperation.
There's no chance I would. If I'm a KDB owner and someone offered me that, I would block them.
Yeah, I mean, because there's nothing like lower than that or like higher than that. I would probably not even bother. Like, because again, KDB's. I get what you're saying about Pep will find a way to like play him, etc. But yeah, it's a tough one. What about you? Have you thought of any names? Like, how low would you go?
Yeah, I'm just gonna. So if we say, let's just focus on midfielders for a second.
I mean, we're assuming he's just doing mids, right? We can consider defenders and forwards as well.
I guess that's true. Before you ask, no, Pinnock. I would not do Pinnock. To clap back to before. Like an interesting one could be Tavernier.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I'd rather KDB, but I can also see.
I think I'd rather Tav. You talk about eye test, like Tavernier has come back with a bang. Like,
well, you say that he hasn't really, numbers wise.
I mean, some of numbers wise, but some of his like goals, like his finishing, and he just looks a little sharper and whatnot. I don't know.
He does, but for me as well, the concern with Tav is going to be minutes, because now Evan Nilsson's back, Sinistera, God knows what's going on with Sinistera, but like it exists. Clover, Semenyo. Like Alex Scott has come back and played relatively well. You know, they're all in the mix, and my concern would be he might start, but like this weekend he'd played 45 minutes. You know, he's not going to necessarily. Cooks. Very good, very good. Too many cooks, not enough Taverniers. Yeah, very good. Defenders wise, I mean, it could be interesting. I don't think any. I don't know if I do it, but you might well get like a Damsgaard owner. Purely on name, which would be insane. I mean, okay, here's one. Someone that you've rostered this season, but has been very poor for the last since the turn of the year, really. Iwobi.
Ooh, I'd probably take Iwobi.
Okay, but for sweetness, I mean, but as an Iwobi owner, you'd be tempted, right?
Yeah. Like, I'd be tempted on either side of that, really. Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, KDB on namesake value alone, just how Iwobi has played this season, like.
Yeah, exactly. I think I'd be looking at if I'm KDB owner, I'd be looking at maybe someone that has Marmouche or someone that has Foden that maybe would maybe accept a cuff. I'm just looking. So Kulusevski on the back of the news today that he's had a knock could be worth a gamble. Mitoma got a knock on the weekend. You know, it might well be that those managers are slightly concerned. I'm in two minds about how soon he's going to be back, but you might be able to get Saka for him. It's unlikely if they've held him this long, but you might.
I mean, before this Champions League brace, could we have not also said Odegaard?
Yeah, I was. That's initially what I was thinking. That's initially what I was thinking when I looked at it. Okay, here's another one which could be interesting. Alexis McAllister.
I own Alexis in DPL, the other one. No, I think I'd go the KDB side on that,
Well, there you go. But I think for me that you could sort of flip a coin on that one. Yeah. Like, as in, I think I'd rather KDB, but I can see why someone might want the security of McAllister. I know he's been relatively return dependent, but if you're saying, right, I'm getting very little from KDB, if you've got some upside midfielders anyway, and maybe you want like an 8.5 floor, I wouldn't hate that. Declan Rice, maybe he's gone off the boil recently.
Yeah. I mean, I'd probably go Declan plus a really shit one, plus one. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, Declan plus just someone that's played well for the last 2 weeks, and they might be going, I didn't think I'd even get this play out of him.
Yeah. Who? Jack Harrison.
I was going to say Jack Harrison. I mean, that would work. Okay, would you prefer, let's maybe think some forwards. Sorry, Sweetness, we're going in deep on this one. I think, would you prefer KDB or Anthony Elanga?
KDB.
KDB or Raul Jimenez?
KDB.
Yeah, I agree on both of those fronts, but people are high on Jimenez still for some reason. Would you prefer KDB or...
Ooh, you want Vissa?
Great shout. I mean, I think I go KDB, but that's because I always underrate Visa.
Yeah, but Brentford are scoring goals. He's scoring goals. He misses a lot of chances
100%.
as well. That's the other thing.
Yeah. And this is another one which, weirdly, so you might be able to get a line. KDB or Son?
It doesn't feel right, but I want to say Son.
Yeah, I sort of know what you mean. I sort of know what you mean. But it's
he's past his prime. There's no denying it.
Of course it is. Yeah. Okay, here we go. KDB, Beto.
Oh, Beto. Just for vibes.
No, I knew you were going to say that as well. No, it's got to be KDB. But if you're a Beto owner, go for KDB, because the owner may well just do it. Like, I love Beto as a player. He's like really. I'm glad for him that he's doing so well. But it is.
I think he's the world's best Sunday League player ever.
Oh my god.
He's like. There's no finesse to the way he looks. Like
no, he turns up at Power League. You know you're going to get cooked, but you're not going to work out how he's done it.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, all right. Let's take Sweetness's next question. I think. If you could go on a TV game show, which one would you pick?
So we're saying game show, quiz show.
Oh, let's go both.
Okay.
Wait. You say quiz show because there's a lot of them in the UK, right?
There's a load of those in the UK, and you're going to get some VAF law here. So, VAF Dad, infamous VAF Dad, was on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire when I was a kid.
What? No way.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, seriously. So when I was like,
you have to plug the episode.
Well, that's the funny thing. There's no. As a family, we have a recording of it, but it was never aired on TV.
Yeah.
So
not even YouTube.
It literally doesn't exist. It was a special one-off. So basically, Tesco, the supermarket chain in the UK. I mean, I think there's some abroad as well. They had this sort of like scratch card system where if you spent a certain amount of money, you got this like scratch card to like enter a competition. To be on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire representing that store. So there was, 200 stores in the UK where this was one of them. And my dad happened to win the opportunity to be the representative from that store. So the way they did it was basically everybody in the audience was in the fastest finger. So rather than like the 10 people or however many it usually is, it was everybody in the audience. And all of the audience were contestants basically. So he wasn't the first person out, he was the second person, so they had like 4 people end up doing it. It was when Chris Tarrant was presenting it when it first started, but because it was like this one-off Tesco thing, they filmed it, but it was filmed largely to be used, in the background in documentaries and stuff like that, but not like an actual episode. So they said they might show it, but they might not. There's literally there's no video to point it to, but
that is amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I was like 10, and and it was just I remember going into school and we made everybody in my year, so it's like 100 kids, all sat down and watched the video.
That is so cool. So you're saying that Who Wants to Be a Millionaire would be one of your top picks then? Well, just given
I feel like
family history.
Yeah, I feel like lineage, that would probably be one. But I don't. Yeah, I don't. In terms of quiz shows, The Chase, I guess, because you get like a quite well-rounded knowledge base on there. Pointless, I really enjoy.
Yeah.
So Pointless would be maybe Pointless with my dad. There we go. We could do that one. And also, my friend from college was in the final of Only Connect last night, which is a niche show in the UK. If you've ever watched Only Connect, it's so hard.
Damn, you're a bit of a celebrity.
No, I think in terms of game show, I guess in terms of like fun game shows, they're bringing back. I don't know if you've ever seen a show called Bring on the Wall or The Wall.
Maybe. Was this a US thing?
No, I think it started in Asia. But it's essentially
okay, maybe not.
So essentially, what happens is sort of like people are on a conveyor belt, and the wall is coming towards them, but the wall will have a cutout shape of a human, but in a really weird shape, and they have to try and match the shape of the hole in the wall to not get knocked off. If that makes any sense.
Right.
So it might well be.
Yeah. I think I've seen a VR version of this or something.
Yeah, that sounds about right. So maybe something like that, just something really silly. What about you?
Okay, fair. Two came to mind. So one is a show that I used to watch a lot when I was younger and probably shouldn't have. It was something called Match Game. It was like back in like the 70s or 80s. They used to show obviously a lot of reruns because I wasn't born back then.
I was going to say, you look a lot younger than you are.
Because there were a lot of like comedians on it that I mean, it was purely just bands trying to match the answers of guests that would come on. And I think the more that you matched versus your opponent, you kind of progress in the game, that sort of thing.
Okay,
but it was purely just because of the bands and loving comedians. Like,
yeah, I was going to say, so that was called Blankety Blank in the UK. And if any people will listen will probably know it's called the Snatch Game on RuPaul's Drag Race. If you've ever seen that, they basically do a version of that exact game.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. Fair. I mean, listen. I also have to go with something a bit educational as well. And I think one of the first ever British game shows that I was introduced to was QI when Stephen Fry was the host.
Yeah.
Absolutely love it.
Yeah. Absolutely brilliant show. I mean, yeah, it'd be quite fun to be on there just to sort of, or even just be there to watch them, really.
Yeah.
Because that would be really good fun.
Yeah, I and honestly, since moving here and getting more exposure to like game shows here, honestly, it's way better than the US ones.
Oh, really?
Like, hands down. I don't think it's an argument. Yeah, I don't think it's an argument. Like, you guys, I think, are also just funnier. Like...
Your words, not mine. I wholeheartedly agree, but your words, not mine.
And now we just lost half our listenership.
I mean, they need to go and learn some comedy, so that's fine.
Clearly. All right. Do you want to take our final question?
Yeah, sure thing. So this one's from Fireworm. As we come towards the final quarter of the season, do you find your fan track strategy changes this late on? For example, are you more willing to drop decent assets who aren't starting? And yeah, just before you jump in, I feel like this is something we've touched on a little bit today, so it'd be interesting to hear you expand on it.
Yeah, I mean, the prime example was the Alcaraz one, right? If he doesn't start, drop him. I'm just wondering what is like the riskiest drop I'd possibly make? Like, maybe drop like a Sancho from Chelsea if he's not starting a fixture, plays for an attacking team, but also he hasn't been scoring that well. Would I maybe like drop any of the Spurs forwards like a Tell or an Odebear? Even though again they could potentially put up good numbers. Who else would I risk drop? I've dropped a Jimenez at some point this season when he was rotating with Muniz. Yep. Other than that, I don't know if I'd go much higher than that. Like, I wouldn't be dropping, I don't think, like a Gakpo or Luis Diaz if they're benched. I think that might be pushing it. But listen, if that is answering the question and push comes to shove, then I get it. Like,
yeah, I think so. For me, this time of the season, I think we touched on it. I think I'm looking at teams that have still got things to play for. And teams that don't have things to play for. So, for example, you say Sancho. I wouldn't roster Sancho anyway. I think that's a huge mistake in the first place. But I think if I'm looking at a situation where Chelsea are pretty much like guaranteed Europe or out of the European picture, I'd happily drop any of those wingers. You know, Neto, Sancho. I know Neto's come back in and played really well recently, but I'm saying if it gets to close towards the end of the season, I wouldn't worry about it because you're likely having to have another player to cover them anyway, so you're almost in a way opening up 2 roster slots, which can be brilliant for streamers. Madueke, obviously. I mean, there's a lot of people holding on to Madueke still now. I think I would have dropped him if it was me by this point. Obviously, it depends on who you can pick up, but it's not as if Madueke was putting up consistent great numbers every week. Obviously we know he's got it in him to put up brilliant figures, but he's so hot and cold. In terms of players,
Ilanga or Cho as well.
I mean,
potentially one of those.
I wouldn't right now, but definitely as we get slightly closer. Garnacho I would drop already by now. I think what an interesting one would be the Brighton boys, right? So if we look at right, so let's just look at Welbeck, João Pedro, Minte, Ruta. If we just deal with those 4, Are there any of those that you would drop on a non-start?
Everyone except JP.
Wow. So even Minte? People are going to be throwing up hearing you say that.
But I mean, we're talking about making difficult decisions.
No, exactly. It's personally something that I would be tempted by, and I agree with you. Welbeck I would drop, and Ruta I would drop, and JP I wouldn't. I mean, JP I brought in pretty cheap a few weeks ago, and it's worked out perfectly for me. But that was purely just looking at value play and just saying, you know what, he's been way undervalued here. This, it's all upside. So no, I think I agree with you on that front. I think
if JP didn't have pens, I would drop him instead of Minter.
Okay. So in your eyes, it's JP, Minter not too far behind, and then the other two you wouldn't be too concerned about. Okay. I mean, that seems entirely fair.
Exactly.
What about someone like... So again, let's look at the Villa boys. So let's look at Rashford, Asensio, Rodgers, Bailey...
Ooh.
Jacob Ramsey.
I'd probably hold on to Asensio and Rashford. I'd drop, I think, everyone else.
Okay. Would you hold on to those two if you needed to, if it was going to cost you a game week?
No, then I'd have to drop them.
Do you see what I mean? If it was a Sunday, if it was a Sunday last kickoff and it was, you can drop them and pick up someone who's probably going to get 8 or 9 and maybe win you the game week, you probably would.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like thinking of DPL, for example. Yeah. I'm 3 points behind second place, battling with 3 other managers, sort of thing. Yeah, I mean, if push comes to shove and I get that 3 points, I probably take that 3 points, man. Because you never know what's guaranteed for the next game week. Somebody picks up an injury in training, that sort of vibe.
No, I 100% agree with you.
It becomes really cutthroat.
I think, but these are the sorts of things that managers really need to think about. It's awful to say, and it sounds really sort of like manager speak in terms of like the Premier League, but you've literally got to look at it as if the season is starting today, every single game week.
Yeah.
You can't be looking at sunk cost in terms of like, oh, I drafted them at this point, or, I turned down this offer a few weeks ago. You've got points. You can't buy points. Like in terms of you can't buy wins. Like they're the only things that are going to make the difference at this point.
Instead of dropping them as well, you could always try the last ditch effort of trying to sell them for a few fab or something.
That's what I was about to say. And also in another similar move, if you do drop them, sometimes it can work in your favour because it means that someone else may end up splurging all of the fab they have on that player when they get dropped, and therefore it clears the way, a bit more moving forward. Sometimes people have the thing of like dropping a bomb into the waiver pool because they know it's going to unsettle things for a lot of managers and maybe makes their life a bit easier going forward.
Yeah. And I mean, in terms of even giving it to the manager, as we get closer towards the end of the season, maybe look at who you're not going to play for the rest of the season.
Exactly.
In terms of matchups, and offer it to those managers or whatever, right? And so you won't have the pain of facing whoever you were dropping or selling or whatever.
That's a good. Yeah, in terms of just the emotional pull, that's definitely a great shout.
Yeah.
So I'm just looking at any other potential options. Yeah. So in terms of other sort of fan track strategy changes, yes, I'd be more than willing to drop decent assets, and it sounds like you're certainly the same. I think one thing to be mindful of is looking towards next season and who a manager's going to want to stick around. If there's a player like I know I've made the point, which doesn't really fit in with this, with Pep and KDB. But it might well be that if there's someone that that a manager isn't really keen on, or they want to play someone into form and them to do well, it might well mean that they're going to get more minutes than you'd expect or less minutes than you'd expect. For example, I'm very interested as to what people are going to do with Trent, including Slot, over the end of the season.
Especially once they wrap up that title, right? Like you said.
Yeah, exactly.
And like he's been trying to wrap up Trent in like cotton wool because of like the hamstring injuries and all that sort of jazz. Like Bradley being out, like Kwanzaa could easily play minutes over there. So yeah, there's stuff like that to definitely consider.
Yeah, and it might well be that you can trade him out not on a high, but on a relative high. If you're really unsure about it.
Yeah, I mean, another strategy of also being comfortable to drop players is look at the fab distribution remaining in your league. Yeah. If you are one of the top 2 or 3 managers in terms of having fab, then it's easier to take that risk.
Yeah, 100%. And I know that doesn't really apply to you because you love to waste all of yours. I mean, 7.
Hey, only on people named James.
I was literally going to say only JWP.
But I mean, the best part is I got him back in that same league. So.
Yeah, I mean, that don't make yourself feel better with that. You spent a lot of money on a used car that was not as advertised, and then got it back for free a few months later after it had been beaten up a bit more by other managers. Don't make yourself feel better about that.
The way I look at it is like I bought Bumblebee in the first ever Transformers movie.
Okay, that seems fair. I mean, you're really turning my cogs here to remind myself about what happened with Bumblebee. But yeah,
a shit card that potentially has the chance of being the hero of the movie.
Yeah, exactly. So. Yeah, I mean, and JWB's a likable guy to have in the roster. He gets on with everybody. He's a nice man.
Yeah, so, but we don't get points or wins for that, right? So
not in this league. Maybe that can be a new one next season.
Yeah. We're always looking for new rules and experiments in the Banter Boys Discord.
Exactly.
But those are the questions, and that is the pod. Elliot, it was an absolute pleasure having you on yet again, mate. We're gonna have to do this again before the season closes out. But do you have any final words before we sign off?
Odegaard also got an assist for the last goal. That's all I have to say.
Sakes.
No, I know. Yeah, no. Jokes aside, yeah. Thanks for having me back on. It's been uber fun, and yeah, thanks to everyone in the community for always just being down for a laugh and having a good time. It makes watching the matches much more fun. It makes talking about them much more fun. So yeah, long may it continue. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, you can find Elliot and a lot of other managers, like we mentioned, Haroon, in the Banter Boys Discord, free of charge to join. Just DM me for a link. I'll send you that. And yeah, just come have a great time, man. And like Ross always says, have fun, enjoy the rest of the season, because when summer hits, there's no football, and that's a really sad time. So yeah, I will catch all of you on the next episode. Peace.